Hello, everyone. This is Corey Stolzenbach. It is December 5th, 2015, a nice Saturday afternoon, and I'm joined now by a tremendous guest. He spent 14 seasons in the big leagues, 7 of them in Cincinnati. The Reds have not yet inducted him into their team Hall of Fame, though the case could be made he belongs. He was a 3-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glove winner. He was part of the team when they went to the World Series in 1961 and also caught 2 no-hitters. I'm talking about Johnny Edwards. And Johnny, Christmas is only 20 days away. I hope you got your shopping done. You don't wait until the last minute.
I always wait till the last minute, so I'll keep doing that.
Well, do your thing, I guess. So, how come you're not at Reds Fest this weekend?
I'm sorry. Say that again.
How come you're not at Reds Fest this weekend?
I'm just resting, watching the University of Houston game right now. Kind of anxious to see what happens later on this afternoon. Of course, my Buckeyes aren't even looking in anymore.
Well, I hope you certainly enjoy the games. I know that you live in Texas and you're right outside Houston in Magnolia. How frequently do you travel to Minute Maid Park to see your former team play?
I go about 4 times a year.
Okay, very nice. And it's definitely more exciting in Houston now that they made the playoffs in 2015 and they got a really bright future ahead of them.
Yeah, they do have a fine young ball club, and I think if they get just pitching, they'll do fine. The pitching wins pennants, you know.
That is absolutely correct. You know something about that. And you were a great defensive catcher. What I want to know is, Johnny, who taught you your defensive fundamentals?
I had a high school coach by the name of that taught me a lot about catching, blocking balls, throwing, and that, and then coming up through the minors. Jim Turner was my manager in Nashville, and Jim helped me a lot with how to handle pitchers.
What do you find is the most important thing to catching? Because there's so many different elements. There's calling signs, working with pitchers. There's also trying to throw runners out. What do you find to be the most single important thing to be a catcher?
Well, I think the most important thing is you've got to have the pitcher have confidence in you and you calling the game. Back when I was playing, we didn't have all the computer background that they have today, so it was the catcher's responsibility to look over the chart that the pitchers had where everybody was hitting it, and so it was job to tell every team meetings, how we were going to play somebody and how we were going to pitch them.
You make your debut June 27, 1961. It's at Wrigley Field, and you walk in your first plate appearance. You're a pinch hitter in the 7th. You scored a run, and then you drove in Gordy Coleman in the 9th, and the Reds won 10-8. What do you remember in the moments leading up to your first major league at bat and debuting at Wrigley?
It was quite a thrill. I was in a slump when I was called up, and the idea was my manager said, "We can't put up with you anymore," and I thought he would send me down. And they called me up to the big leagues. I joined Cincinnati, Chicago, got in late at night, and of course I didn't have training, talking to the players and all that. So I caught the next day. I remember about it is not so much the at-bat. I walked up to the at-bat I had. I think I hit a home run the second time. Hit the... but the thing I remember is, I just at that time had signs behind the plate. And in Chicago, they had somebody in the door that was flashing the exit signs. If they flashed, once it was a fastball. If it flashed, it was a breaking ball. And if it didn't flash at all, they didn't know what it was. And I remember they had a hitter by the name of who was hitting about 190, and he hit a curveball. Man, man, what the big leagues like. But anyway, I had to come up with more complicated lines because they stole them. They steal them in Chicago. They tried to steal them in Milwaukee. That we fought after that.
During that 1961 season, you were Jerry Zimmerman's backup. What did you learn from him?
Well, Jerry, Jerry was, a fine catcher. He was, that year I struggled hitting and he struggled hitting. We held the pitching staff together, and the pitching staff is what won the. Had Frank and that, but Joey had a great year. Perky, O'Toole, those guys did great, and Maloney was there. So it was the pitching that won the league pennant.
Yes, a lot of great pitching. Yes, Joe Jay, Jim O'Toole, Bob Perky, like you mentioned, so a lot of very good pitchers. And Frank Robinson was the MVP. He had a fantastic season that year and arguably could have won it the next year, too. But that 1961 season, Johnny, the Reds won the pennant after 3 consecutive losing seasons. When did you and the rest of the team think you guys could possibly pull it off?
Well, I think we got to give Fred Hutchison, the manager, because he kept us going and pushing us, and he was a great psychologist too. He knew how to handle all players. He handled me a lot than he did, anybody else, and he was the key behind our victories.
Yes, well, I know that he really meant a lot to the Reds organization. They did retire his number in honor of him as number 1, and very courageous person. We'll talk about him later some more. But you hit 2 home runs in all of 1961, and both of them were at Wrigley Field, the place that you debuted at. And you hit a home run September 26 against Bob Anderson. The Reds are down 3-0, and you guys had the potential to clinch that day if the Dodgers lost also either one of their games against Pittsburgh. And so you took Bob Anderson deep on September 26, 1961. Tell me your approach to that at-bat against Anderson.
Say that again?
Yes, your approach to Bob Anderson when you took him deep in 1961, September 26th, in the game that the Reds came back to win 6-3 after being down 3-0. And the Reds ended up winning the pennant after the Pirates won that doubleheader, Game 2.
Right, and of course, that was a big deal. I remember the celebration in Cincinnati when we came back into town it was amazing. I have one story. That year, we had a big series out in L.A., 4-game series toward the end of the season, and we were up by a couple games. And in that first game, Drysdale was pitching, and Walt Alston, Don Blasingame was on second base, so they were going to walk. Drysdale's walk was 3 knockdowns, and he hit him on the 4th pitch. And I thought, boy, this is a tough league. Anyway, Drysdale got kicked out of the ball game. Anyway, we went on to win 3 out of 4, and then we kind of floated into the National League pennant after that.
But what about that home run though against Bob Anderson? Do you remember that?
No.
Okay. Then very well then. I know that you guys celebrated. Pittsburgh won the second game of the doubleheader 8-0. But even when you were Jerry Zimmerman's backup that year, he got no plate appearances in the World Series, and you did pretty well. Unfortunately, it was a losing effort, but you hit .364 in that Fall Classic. What prompted Fred Hutchinson to give you the reins behind the plate in that World Series?
I'm not really sure. I was, even though I was struggling at the plate, I still was a good defensive catcher, and I could handle pitchers pretty well. And I had learned, during that year catching, them, and that was I think the reason why I was in there.
Well, I know that you hit them pretty well, so something must have been going right your way if you were able to hit .364 in that 5-game series.
Yeah, we did get beat by the Yankees. pretty well, especially, we won one game up. Joey pitched a good game up in New York, and we came back home. But I remember Leo hit one off the scoreboard that would have been a home run any other. And it just seemed like, that would have brought us back in the third game or fourth game. I forget when it was, but anyway, we kind of got deflated after that and didn't play very well.
That's what I'm thinking, because you guys won 6-2, Game 2 in the Bronx, like you said. Joey J got the victory, and you stole home field advantage. So where was your mind at? What was your mindset going into Game 3? Because you guys did steal home field advantage. You had a split in the Bronx. What are you thinking going into Game 3 at Crosley Field?
Well, winning one game in New York, of course, we were inflated, and we thought we'd come back home and maybe win the World Series. We thought we would. It didn't turn out that way.
So finish this sentence for me. We could have stunned the Yankees in that World Series if...
I think the big key was, Frank and Veda had trouble in that series hitting-wise. And if they would have had their, normal hitting, I think we could have won the series.
And it's certainly possible. Yes, it is. I know that you played them tough in Game 1. You won Game 2. You had a chance to win Game 3. You're up 1-0 and later 2-1 before Johnny Blanchard tied in the top of the 8th with a home run. And then on the top of the 9th, Roger Maris had a go-ahead shot in the next inning. And unfortunately, you guys would be outscored combined 20-5 in Games 4 and 5. So really, was that the wind out of your sail then, those 2 home runs?
That was the one I was talking about. That I think Leo hit one off the scoreboard that would have made a big difference late in the game. But there's been a lot of water over there, and I can't remember all the details.
Well, Game 5, that's when Joe J got the ball again. He goes onto the mound, got the complete game win in Game 2, except he didn't even finish the first inning because Jim Maloney came in for relief, and Jay was tagged for 3 runs. I know that there was an E3 by Gordy Coleman. He was trying to pick off Bobby Richardson, and Richardson had a single in that inning, and then Blanchard again, he had a 2-run shot. So where do you think it all went wrong for Joe J in that inning?
Just, a matter of, control. He was had great stuff. But the Yankees, if he made a mistake, they made you pay for it. And he made a few mistakes.
So as someone who worked with him in both Games 2 and 5, what was different from Game 2 and Game 5?
Well, I think he just had better control of pitches on games.
What did you try telling him?
Beg pardon?
What did you try telling him?
Well, we tried to make sure he was, getting down with the ball and, hitting corners rather than coming in the middle of the plate. We talked to him about that, and he was trying as hard as he could, that sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't.
Yes, and like I said, unfortunately, it ended for you guys the way that it did, but still a very nice season nonetheless. And Jerry Zimmerman gets traded to the Twins, and you become their full-time catcher in 1962. So, as someone who played his first full season that year in 62, Johnny, what did you learn during that time, your first full year in the majors?
Well, I started to get a little bit more confidence in my hitting and all that, and I never did lose any confidence in my catching. I was able to throw. I was able to block balls. I was able to call a pretty good game. I see the catchers today, and over to get the signs from the bench. That never happened to me. Fred Hutchison, and that time Jim Turner was our pitching coach. They didn't try to control the game, and they let me call it. And as a result, I got a lot of confidence.
Yeah, it certainly seems like there is more control in today's game, but that shows you how much things have changed since you last played. And 1963, very good year for you. You're a Gold Glove catcher, and you're an All-Star. So, how much did it mean to you back in 1963, knowing that you would be selected to your first of 3 consecutive All-Star teams that year?
That was quite a thrill, and I just kept feeling it. I was getting better and better and better, and I started hitting a few more home runs, and my average I got up to 281 one year, and that really boosted my confidence.
Well, you never got a hit in the All-Star game. You played in 2 of the 3 that you were selected to. However, you were part of one of the most memorable moments in the history of the All-Star game. You were on base. You're intentionally walked. Dick Ratz is on the mound, 1964 at Shea Stadium. And Johnny Callison, what a year he had that year. He had a 3-run walk-off home run in the bottom of the 9th. You score, Curt Flood scores. Tell me how exhilarating that was when you were trying the bases and touching home plate, knowing the All-Star game just ended like that.
Well, everybody has confidence in themselves, and Curt was on second base, and Raditz was a pitcher, and I was hitting, and of course I wanted to hit. If I drive in that run, it really helps my image, but they intentionally walked me, and then of course Johnny hit the home run that wins the ball game.
I know that you were intentionally walked quite a few times in your career. What could be said about you, about the kind of hitter that you were given free passes so much by pitchers?
That was, one of the things that I came to realize. A lot of times I was the eighth place hitter. And, of course, the pitchers were hitting at that time, so it was crucial in the ball game. I got blocked. And when I went over to St. Louis and played over there, Shane Dinks knew I was a pretty good fastball hitter, and he hit me third behind behind Brock and Flood, and in front of Maris and Cepeda. And, I caught every other game over there. I caught Gibson that year when he had the 1.12 run average, and I caught Washburn. He had a couple hitters this year. But anyway, that was really a thrill to me, not to be intentionally walked. Hell, they weren't going to walk me for anything.
I think that you're in the top 80, I think, of all-time intentional walks. I think you're like 77th or 79th all-time, so you got a lot of free passes.
Yeah, I did get intentionally walked quite a bit.
So speaking of 1964, Fred has to step down in August. He's battling lung cancer that year. It's not good at all. Unfortunately, he passes away after the season. And what did you notice from Hutch when he was managing you guys that season? How did he look, and in what ways might he have inspired you guys?
Well, Hutch is a very proud man. I remember, I'd come out, I always went to the park to play, and during that time, he was always out there in the whirlpool. But I'll never forget when he was having trouble on a bench, and after the game, get up and walk. Several of us tried to help him, and boy, he got mad at us. He said, "I don't need your help," and got up and struggled into the clubhouse.
And I can only imagine that it was motivation for you guys to go out there and play for him and win for him down the stretch in '64.
That's correct.
I know when Dick Sisler, he's your first base coach, he comes in, he goes to the dugout, takes over for Hutchinson, and you go 32-21 with Sisler at the helm, and you're a serious pennant contender. What do you think made the transition from Fred Hutchinson to Dick Sisler so seamless?
Well, I think it was the fact that we were still thinking about Hutch and trying to win for him, and in '64 we had a chance to win the pennant, and came back home and we were playing Philadelphia. They couldn't win it anymore. They were way up, and then we beat them in Philadelphia and came home. We played them on Friday, and they threw it to Leo Cardenas, and he charged the mound, and of course that got him stirred up. You have a sleeping dog, you don't wake him, and unfortunately that woke up in Philadelphia, and they beat us 2 out of 3.
Yes, there are a lot of unfortunate things that September because things were going your way. The Phillies, they had the infamous fold. They're up 6.5, 12 games to go in the pennant race. And all of a sudden, you guys win 1-0. That started a 10-game losing streak for them. Chico Ruiz with that stealing home at Kodimak Stadium. And that was the second win you guys had in a row. You ended up winning 9 straight. The only problem is that you guys lost 4 out of your last 5, and the Cardinals beat the Mets October 4th, and you fell short to the Phillies. I mean, you guys lost by 1 run to Pittsburgh September 30th. You lost to Philadelphia by 1 run October 2nd. And you guys did pretty well. You went 10-8 against the Cardinals that year. But where do you think it all went wrong in that final week of the season?
Yeah, like I said, that got the Phillies going on. You know, you're a good team like that. Pretty soon you got to come out of it. On Friday was the time when Leo charged the mound, and I remember after the game, 0-2, and him got into it in the clubhouse, and things just went down from then.
So you think that what happened behind the scenes affected you guys psychologically then and affected your morale?
That's correct. And it helped their morale more than hurting ours.
How badly did you want to face the Yankees again in 1964 and get them back from 3 years earlier?
Yeah, we certainly wanted to be there. We just didn't. We just blew it the last 4 games, like you said.
I know, but still, you would have faced the Yankees in 1961 rematch. It would have really meant something to you if it was against the Yankees. You had a chance to right that wrong from 3 years back, though.
Yeah, we wanted the opportunity to do it, but we didn't get the chance.
So 1965 comes along, and you guys have a pretty good year, but you go 89-73, and so Bill DeWitt fires Dick Sisler. Did he deserve to get fired that season?
Yeah, we had a halfway decent, but some of our pitching wasn't quite as good as it had been in the past. Of course, Maloney and O'Toole were there, and Jim was getting better and better, but we just didn't compete like we usually do.
And you and Maloney had quite the rapport going that year. June 14th, he's got 10 no-hit innings against the Mets. You get lifted. He loses it in the 11th inning. Mets win 1-0. Maloney has 18 strikeouts and 1 walk against the Mets, and still that's not good enough to finish it and get the no-hitter. So how much do you think getting taken out of that game had an impact on Maloney losing his no-no like that?
Well, I was disappointed when they took me out of the game. I was on second base, and they put a pinch runner in for me and took me out. Where, to me, you don't change the catcher when it's throwing a no-hitter. And I don't know if it was resolved, but anyway, what was it? McMillan hit the home run in the next inning.
Yes, and the Mets won on a walk-off. It was 1-0. It just goes to show you how funny of a game that baseball is, though, Johnny, because according to you, when you sat at the Reds Hall of Fame in 2013, Jim Maloney was wilder than a church mouse when he got his no-hitter against the Cubs, and he walked 10 batters, he hit 2 of them on 186 pitches, he struck out 10, and yet you guys managed to pull off that no-hitter when Leo Cardenas hit that home run the top of the 10th. So what was it? How is Maloney able to throw a no-hitter against the Cubs with that kind of a line, but then he strikes out 18 Mets and walks only 1 and he can't complete it?
that game, I'll never forget it because he threw 186 pitches. I think, what did he walk, 10 or 11?
He walked 10.
I think he walked that many, and it seems like, he'd walk the first guy, and then there'd be an infield thing, and somehow that guy would get over to third with with 2 men out. And Jim was wilder than a church mouse, and all I could think of, boy, don't let the ball get by you. But anyway, I was exhausted after the game, and can you imagine somebody pitching, throwing 186 pitches in today's environment?
Oh, no, I certainly can't. There are combined no-hitters. There's not a chance that something like that would happen today. I absolutely agree with you. I know how demanding catcher is. So when you would go out to the mound and you would talk to Jim, what were you telling him when you guys talked?
Well, when you're catching a no-hitter, you go out there and just try to calm him down. You don't even talk much about the game. You just get behind the plate and call the pitch, and hopefully they don't get a hit.
And how would you describe Jim during those games against the Mets and against the Cubs? What was his demeanor like out there?
He was in charge, and he had a great fastball and had a super curveball. Unfortunately, he didn't get credit for that 10 innings pitched in New York.
Well, I think he was... Sorry, go ahead.
They gave it to him, and then they took it away.
Right, that's just what I was about to say. I know that Maloney was a very good curveball pitcher, so when did it become routine for you to ever handle all those curveballs that he threw?
Well, he just had a good curveball, but of course his best pitch was fastball. He had the riding fastball, and I'll never forget some of the games that I had. I'd look at my hand after a game, and I never used a sponge or anything, and boy, it would be swollen up. And I got a story to tell you. One time it was swollen, and Wade Hoyt said, "Have your wife buy you and put it in your glove." And the next game, so I tried that, and guess what? It didn't work, but I did ruin a glove in between.
That really is some kind of story. Was Maloney your favorite pitcher to work with, or was that someone else?
Maloney was definitely the best pitcher I've worked with. He was also my roommate.
Yes, I was just about to bring that up. I understand you two were roommates, so that must have really helped the way that you guys got along out there on the field.
Yeah, we were like two brothers.
I know that you were very close. Yes, because like I said, you were at the Reds Hall of Fame in 2013, and also from what I've read, the both of you were in attendance when Homer Bailey threw his second career no-hitter against the Giants, July 2nd of 2013.
That's correct.
And so what was it like to see that as a spectator?
Yeah, it was something else. Of course, it's easy from stands. I know what happens on the field.
Yes, that was it was 3-0, I believe. They no-hit the Giants, and he also no-hit the Pirates in September of 2012. And just 11 days later, Tim Lincecum, who was a losing pitcher in that no-hitter, he got one himself against the San Diego Padres at Petco Park.
Yep.
So he also threw his second career no-hitter April 30th, 1969, except you're a member of the Astros. And that was a 10-0 win, I believe, so it must have been more fun catching him than trying to hit Maloney.
Yeah, he was he was pretty tough that day. He had his wet one going pretty good that day.
What could be said about him, the fact that there are a lot of pitchers who have no-hit stuff and can take no-hitters deep into the later innings and often complete them multiple times, so what could be said about the kind of stuff that he had?
Oh, once he got in the groove, he was just tough to hit. The only way that anybody got a hit late in the game, that was a fluke hit. They didn't really drive the ball.
Well, let's talk about the other no-hitter that you caught. You were a Cardinal in 1968, and they went to the World Series that year. They lost to the Tigers in 7, and the day before, Gaylord Perry of the Giants, he no-hits the Cardinals, and then the very next day, Ray Washburn, he no-hit the Giants, and you were the catcher for that game. And I want to know what you guys were thinking, what your mentality was, how you guys were in sync. I'm not sure if you want to no-hit them back, or that's just how it went. I'd like to know more about that.
Well, I don't know if you realize, but when Gaylord Perry threw his, that was the day after we cinched the pennant. And I was not supposed to catch that game, but Tim didn't want to play, so I ended up playing that game, and then I played the next day with Washburn.
And then so going out there as the game is going on, what's going through your mind?
Well, we just wanted to win, and then Ray threw a jam of a ball game, and that was back-to-back no hitters, and then I came back down to Houston, get traded. St. Louis traded me before the World Series. Houston had to put me on their list, their protected list, so I was traded before the World Series started. I didn't know that till after the series. I wondered why I didn't play and didn't catch Gibson, since I'd caught every game he played, including spring training. But I found out after the thing. But next year, Maloney threw a no-hitter, and then Don Wilson backed that up the next day in Cincinnati. So I was around for two back-to-back no-hitters.
I thought the only one in Major League history was when Perry and Washburn did it. I know that Wilson did throw a no-hitter that year, but is it for certain that Wilson did it the very next day?
Yeah, he threw it the next day after Maloney threw his.
Okay, it's very interesting indeed. And I know they pitched 2 career no-hitters, so this is really something else. And he threw one in 1967. Yeah, I do stand corrected. Yes, he returned the favor. So I guess, because I always thought for some reason that it was only Perry and Washburn, but I guess you learn something new every day, and that's my mistake for not knowing. But I know you did get one at-bat in the World Series in 1968. You only struck out once in your only at-bat. In what ways might that World Series have been different, if at all, if you saw more action?
Well, I was just surprised. I did finally get a chance to pinch hit against McLean, but I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't play. I just if they made a deal, I didn't know it, or if they were worried about me having a great series and then telling I was traded after the series. I don't know, but I didn't play. And like I said, I did hit one time, struck out.
So it was because of that then, because they had unknowingly traded you at the time, that they didn't want to play you, so that's why.
Yeah, they just, I never did, ask Shane Dinks exactly why, but I always wondered, Gibson lost that 7th game, and I still feel like if I'd been playing, it might have been different.
But something must have gave, though, if Red gave you the at-bat for that one time, though, in the series.
Yeah. Yeah, there must have been, I must have been still eligible to play, because I played. I batted.
Yes, you sure did. And the Tigers won the World Series after erasing a 3-1 deficit. And I know that you talked about the Astros, you talked about the no-hitter with Don Wilson and that happening, and Jim Maloney throwing his second of his career. And the 1969 Astros, they actually struck out more batters than anyone in National League history until the Braves eclipsed them in 1996. And you played all but 11 games at catcher that year. How much of that was on you, that they were able to strike out so many batters? What kind of pitches were you calling?
Well, we had a strong pitching staff, and no matter what I put down, guys were good and had a good fastballs, and I think for a long while I held strikeouts in a season with that team, put outs by a catcher.
Well, I know that you were a stud defensively for sure. And most of your time in Houston, the Astros were around 500, just below it. Unfortunately, they never reached the playoffs, and they needed a big bat. They didn't have a lot of power, so just before 1972, they get Lee May from the Reds. They trade Joe Morgan. And Lee May, he had some good years in Houston. I think he might have finished top 10 MVP voting one year. And he had some nice power, drove in 100 runs a couple times, and he hit a lot of home runs. But Joe Morgan, as we know, he wanted to have the career that he had. So what do you want to say about that trade looking back on it?
I always thought that was the worst trade we ever made. There was, we gave up some pretty good ball players. Of course, Joe was the primary player, and what he would have meant to the team as far as leadership and bases and all that was, with Cedeno coming into his own, and of course Jimmy Wynn being there in the power, it would have made a difference. You also got Geronimo played the outfield for you guys for a long time, and he could have helped us too. And Billingham came over in that deal, and Billingham had a great career with Cincinnati.
Yes, Jack Billingham sure did. That's funny though you say that was the worst trade they ever made. I want you to clarify, is that the worst trade that they made when you were in Houston, or is that the worst trade that any two have made yours during your career?
Well, there were several other ones. The Frank Robinson trade was a mistake. Gee whiz. To give up that guy for one pitcher was a mistake. And but then the Houston trades were something else too. Gave up Mayberry, who was a pretty good hitter, got traded for a relief pitcher, and I just can't say that we had very good management down at Houston.
As I figured, because that Frank Robinson trade wasn't very good for the Reds, because even though Milt Pappas had a nice career, he did win 100 games in both leagues. Robinson ends up winning the Triple Crown, the MVP, World Series of Baltimore, and he's wearing an Orioles hat in the Hall of Fame. So that's why I was just trying to clarify if by the worst trade ever you mean when you were on the Astros or in your career. That's what I was trying to get at there.
Well, the Milt, like I said, had, like you said, 100 wins, but how many did he win with Cincinnati? He won most of his games with Chicago and with Baltimore.
That's a very good point. It's an excellent point. And last question before we go. 1974, your last Major League at-bat, it was against the Los Angeles Dodgers. You walked. So when and why did you decide that was it for you then?
I don't know. I just that was the way I felt.
Okay, well, very well then.
I do have some advice for the young pitchers. The young players. In 1966, last game of spring training, we're playing in Indianapolis, and I fractured my finger. And in that day and time, we didn't want out of the lineup we wanted to play. So I played 4 days later with a splint on my finger shaped like a baseball. And if you check my record in '66, I had a terrible year hitting. It was because I couldn't grab the bat right. And so I tell these young players anymore, if you're hurt like that anymore, go ahead and get you fixed. My finger right now looks like it goes off at almost a right angle, or at least a 30-degree angle, and that hurt my baseball career. I think if I'd got it fixed and done it right, I think I'd have been a lot better ball player.
Well, you certainly had a nice career as it was, and thank you so much, Johnny Edwards, for joining me this afternoon, and thank you to you, the listener. Really do appreciate it. I'm Corey Stolzenbach. Until next time, have a good one, everybody.